What happened last week? Last week, we had a tshuva shmooze. Right? They're standing right there in front of Yosef. And their lives are falling apart. Here they are. The sons of Yaakov Avinu. Who felt that they really don't need to go to Egypt to get food. Why? Because they're God's people. He'll look after them. He looked after Avraham, he looked after Sarah, he looked after Yitzchak, he looked after Rivka, he looked after them. And Yaakov says, no, not this time. Hashem is going to look after us, but we got to get the Goy involved. We need the Goy's help, because the miracles of Golos happen to the Gentile. That was enough of a demotion as far as they were concerned. And then they show up in Egypt, and this miserable, wretched leader is just picking on them. Thousands of people coming for food, and he singles them out. He calls them spies, and he insults them, and he gets into a confrontation with them, and he starts asking them questions, and they innocently answer everything they tell him. He uses against them. And they're really, really distraught. They're not used to this. These are the kings of the hill. These are people usually in charge. So right in front of Yosef, they disengage and they have a conversation. They tell each other, Aval Hashem anachnu alachim. Right, this was last week's class. Look what's happening. We're guilty. Our brother begged and pleaded. We showed him no mercy, and look what's going on. And Reuven goes deeper. Correct? Reuven says, no. I told you don't do it. And last week the Rebbe explained to us that the brothers saw this as a punishment. And Reuven says, no, this is not punishment, it's an opportunity for tshuva. And then he adds even more. It's not only an opportunity for tshuva. Take the blame on yourself completely. Don't say we share the blame with Yosef. If you're doing tshuva completely, you don't start saying, well, it's not entirely my fault. It's all my fault. This is what happened last week. They come home and they're shaken. First of all, someone's missing, right? Simeon never made it back to the Holy Land. Shimon is in a jail cell in Mitzrayim. 10 left and 9 returned. Yaakov starts to count, Shimon is missing. What's going on? And they have to tell him what happened. This guy singled them out, picked on them. But there's a problem. What's the problem? The problem is Yaakov Avinu officially doesn't know what happened to Yosef. Correct? Yeah. Yaakov Avinu officially thinks Yosef is dead. Now, why did all the trouble begin? The trouble begins because there's 10 boys, 10 young men, walk into Egypt through 10 different gates. They scatter themselves in the capital city and they go into every market, into every corner. They're looking for something. Right? They create what is obvious suspicion. They give Yosef Atzadik every justification for being suspect of them. Suspicious of them. But they can't tell this to Yaakov. Why not? Because Yaakov's in the dark. Yaakov thinks Yosef's dead. So they have to explain to him that Yosef's picking on them, but they can't really explain why. There's this half conversation. They come home to their father. They tell him, he's picking on us. My teacher doesn't like me. He's picking on me. Okay, we'll call the principal. Get him fired. No. We move you to another room. But he's in charge of all the classes. He teaches everybody. We're stuck. There's only one Yosef. So they have to, so to speak, not tell Yaakov Avinu what really happened. Because what really happened is, they went to look for Yosef, and they created an air of very real suspicion around themselves. Yosef confronts them, and they confirmed all the suspicion. They said, yeah, we came and looked for our brother, and if we'll have to kill, we'll kill. Yosef says, this is what I said, you're a bunch of spies. He takes away Shimon. Says, okay, I don't believe you, I think you're a bunch of liars. Bring me your little brother Binyamin. By the way, this little brother Binyamin is the father of 10 children. He's about 30-something years old, but don't tell anybody, he's a little boy. So now Reuven speaks up. He says to Yaakov, we got to go back. We got to get more food. And we got to bring home Shimon. Give me Binyamin. And Yaakov and his oldest son have another confrontation. And Yaakov again is disappointed in his oldest son, and that's the way it ends. And then they run out of food. Time passes. How much time? A year? Who knows? A while. And when there's nothing else to eat in the house, Yehuda speaks up. And Yehuda is much more deliberate, much more thoughtful, much more precise. And Yehuda talks his father into letting Binyamin go alone. And Yaakov is really upset. Yaakov is really upset. Why did you share all this information with this man? Why did you tell him? Why did you give him all these answers? Now, what's the answer? Because they went into 10 gates and they said that they're willing to kill or be killed to get their brother back. But they can't tell that to Yaakov Avinu, right? So they have to stammer and which our president is famous for, and find language which will allow them to share with their father why Yosef is picking on them. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Yaakov is very suspicious. So a very interesting thing happens. Yaakov Avinu responds to them, but he doesn't believe them. He doesn't believe them. Yaakov Avinu believes that there's more to the story than he's being told, and he's right. This Sicha explores what happens. Yaakov finds out, okay, take Binyamin, take him. I've suffered so much, I'll suffer some more. I've had so many losses, I'll have another loss. Take him. But we need to do everything in our power to make sure he comes home. So the first thing they do is they bring back all the money that was placed in their bags. Remember that little detail? You imagine. This guy treats you like you're a criminal, and then you find your money in your bag. What do you think? Obviously, he's setting you up. If he put you in, you're going to come back into Mitzrayim. He's going to say, you stole your money. Yeah, I know. The money was in their bag. Into jail, all 10 of you. But they have no choice. They got to eat, yeah? So they go back to Mitzrayim with this extra cash. They bring along gifts, food stuff. In the middle of a hunger, they find whatever, spices, in the ancient world. Today you buy spices in a little bottle in a store, what's it called? Nutmeg. You know what nutmeg is? Mm-hmm. Nutmeg is a spice over which nations went to war. A spice went to war. Nutmeg exists in the Far East, in some islands, and somebody found it, I don't know, probably the Danish trade or somebody like that, and of course the big bullies of Europe, the sweetest, nicest people, the Germans, the French, and the British, took it away from them. And they didn't want to give it up, so they killed him. That's all. Technical detail, yeah. Perfumes and spices were incredibly, incredibly valuable in the ancient world. In some cases, they were literally worth more than their weight in gold. Because how did food taste? Like wheat and flour and sand and water mixed together made bread. That's what they ate. You know why the ancient people had no teeth? Because they used to use rocks to grind their wheat. So the flour had sand in it, and they ate the sand. It's the fact of life. So anything which made life a little more interesting in the ancient world was incredibly. You're talking about 4,000 years ago. It's a long time ago. So they find some of these delectable stuff. They send it back with him, and then it says in the pasuk, "V'kel Shaddai yiten lachem racham lefnei haish." The God of Shin Daled Yud should put compassion towards you in the face of this man. V'yishlach lachem es achichem acher es Binyamin. And you'll send back your other brother, and your other brother means Shimon. But the Rashi says that Yaakov senses that this actually means Yosef himself and Binyamin, and then he says, V'nika asher shakolti shakolti. And if it all fails, and you all end up jail or dead, this is the story of my life. That's how it finishes. V'nika asher shakolti shakolti. So what the Rebbe does in this Sicha, it's a Rashi Sicha, and of course we're not learning it as a Rashi Sicha. We're learning it as a Sicha as part of our syllabus, which is the story of Yosef and his brothers. It's a step in the direction of ending up in Golus. That Yaakov Avinu does two things. Number one, he responds to what his children tell him. I don't know why he's picking on us. I have no idea. I don't know. I came to school on time. I sat in my seat. I did my homework. I didn't spill my soda on my desk. He's picking on me. So Yaakov responds to that. If that's true, that you've done nothing wrong and he's picking on you, we got to make him like you. How do you make him like you? Bribe him. Simple. Not complicated. But if you're a bunch of liars, and Yaakov thinks they're a bunch of liars, and they are, and there's another layer to the story where they're not being picked on arbitrarily, but they're being picked on for a precise reason. Now, Yaakov's thoughts are that the precise reason is the Eibush has gotten in on the action. Now we need a prayer. And this Sikha explores the choice of words that Yaakov uses. Where on the one hand, he's speaking to what his children are telling him, and on the other hand, he doesn't trust his kids. So he's speaking to what he thinks is really going on. And the Eibishter is down their back. Right? Just like 2 weeks ago. Yaakov suspects this is the beginning of Golus, the beginning of hardship. And again last week didn't involve Yaakov, it was Reuven and his brothers. Yaakov suspects that there's things going on here that are not just obnoxious, power-hungry leader picking on what looks like a bunch of handsome people. There's something else. Yaakov speaks to that as well. Okay, let's go. Nachdem, v'Yaakov Avinu hat masken given, azay zollen vider gain kein Mitzrayim. Once Yaakov acquiesces that they should go again to Egypt, when he tells his children, this is what you should do. Take what is most precious in the Holy Land, spices and perfumes. We're reading only the underlined. Yaakov finishes, the God of Shin Dalad Yud, which means of sufficiency, of enoughness, should give you compassion to the face of this man, Vishilach, and he should send home your other brother, namely Shimon, for Es Binyamin. Says Rashi, if it is as you say, this is entirely coincidental. He's picked on us because he was in a bad mood. He didn't eat his lunch wasn't good. We happened to be the first clients after lunch and he was in a bad mood, so he picked on us. So now all you need is a prayer. I'm going to daven for you. Turn the page. Page 228 now. Yaakov had gesagt Labanov. Yaakov speaks to his kids. This is a marshal. And he's speaking to them based on how they spoke to him. They told him a bunch of lies. Right? Told him a bunch of lies. Whatever needs to be done within the framework of nature. In order to appease. Dem Oden in Mitzrayim, the master in Egypt, is Gevoren Bavoren, was already dealt with, by this instruction. Kruva gamer, take along these perfumes and these spices. And then he added, that's not sufficient. Skip, go to the next thing. In other words, why wouldn't it be sufficient? Says the Marshal, this looks like a direct quote. It's Hashgacha Protis Vesibas Alikimu. This is the hand of God, and it's by divine intervention. This is not Yosef HaTzadik, the vizier in Egypt, acting on his own. But God is behind this, right? Yosef can't say to his sons, and if you're a bunch of filthy liars and you went to Egypt and you got into trouble. He says, and if this is the hand of God. Now, the brothers also know it's the hand of God, but for a very different reason. The brothers know the hand of God, they see it as they're being punished. Yaakov sees it the hand of God because he thinks it's the beginning of Golus. Or if in fact this is more than a natural event, it's more than an accident, and it needs a divine invocation, if David HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm going to daven for you. So Yaakov's words allow for several things. He's not showing up his sons, he's not telling them you're liars. But he's also speaking in a way that he's not believing them. He says, listen, based on your version of the story, it could be that this is the hand of God, so let me daven. Based on my version of the story, you're a bunch of filthy liars. I'm not sure what's going on, but I better do some praying. Okay? So he says the same words. But in as much as his children are concerned, it has one intent. In as much as he is concerned, has a very different intent. Go to page 230 now, please. And the Rebbe says like this. Now listen carefully. I'm reading only the underlined, okay? Yaakov Avinu understands that whatever it is that happened, and he wasn't there, but whatever it is that happened is really, really not good. Azay haben die Shvatim beinam lebein atzmam euch gesehen, and that's not son of Einish. The Shvatim also saw that this is really, really not good, right? Yaakov sees this really not good. The Shvatim is not good, but there, you have to understand, there's a bunch of games going on here, right? What was their version of the not good? Because last week's class, was their versions are not good. The brothers say we're guilty, and Reuven says do tshuva. And please don't blame Yosef. This is all us. Noch Zayinik in Mitzrayim, as they stood right in front of Yosef HaTzadik, they had this conversation. Aval, it is true. Ashem Menachnu, we're guilty. Asher Inu Tzoras Nafshe, we saw the brokenhearted of our own brother. Beschadene Elenu, as he pleaded with us. V'lo Yishamayna, we did not listen. Al Kain Bo Elenu Atzora, they were there for suffering. So everybody knows that this is not about derech hateva. A bribe, not going to cut it. There's something else going on. But each one is speaking different. No one's telling everyone the truth. Everyone's playing a game. Aber in Eirei to Yaakov, when they spoke to their father, they couldn't tell him the truth. And therefore, Kamuvan itself understood, so Yaakov haben die Shvatim geret, when they came home to their father after their first trip, and they told him what happened, wegen them about this story, nicht wie wegen Hashem Matzav Shel Einish. They didn't tell them that they're being punished. They didn't tell him that they did a big Aveda, they sold their brother into slavery, rather than finding his dead remains in a field. And therefore they're being punished. They gave their father a version of this story. He was in a bad mood. That's all. He picked on us. Now Yaakov hears their version of the story and doesn't believe him. Next page, 231. Der Vater hat sehr Yaakov gesagt, Imke, let's assume you're telling me the truth. Imke, if it is as you say, that this is coincidental, under these circumstances, is as you say, as is nit king Sodom. This is not a terrible decree from on high. This is a coincidence that happens in nature. Is behetem demit. So according with that version of the story, Zay Sasu, this is what you should do. Take along a bribe. To appease that man with an offering using natural means. Next paragraph. But then he goes on and he says, the God of sufficiency should give before you compassion. You lack nothing except a prayer. And says the Rebbe, you can read these words in two ways. In your version of the story which you shared with me, about the condition as you lack nothing. But you could still use a prayer. Why? Because even if it's true, as the brothers lied to their father, that there was nothing unusual about this event, it was just a coincidence. Even then, and even after you make all the arrangements within nature, you need a prayer. So those kids, okay, in your version of the story, all we need is the bribe and a prayer. I'll pray. One of the points that Rebbe makes is, why does Yaakov pray for them? Why doesn't he tell them to pray for themselves? Because they can't tell them that they need to pray, because telling them to pray means that they're in trouble. They're in trouble means that they sin. Yaakov doesn't know about it. He says, I'll pray for you. Just in case you're telling me the truth. Just in case, yeah? Yaakov doesn't believe him. Yaakov thinks they're lying to him. Yaakov thinks there's more to the story than they're telling him. And therefore, Yaakov tells his children, okay, no problem. Nature, send them a bribe. I'm going to pray. What? Prayers never hurt. And Yaakov is thinking to himself, these filthy liars. I don't know what kind of trouble they're in. I better pray. So he uses the same words, addressing two things. The problem, in other words, to give the solution for the problem within nature, and based on his suspicion that there's more to the story, he says, I better daven. But he tells the brothers, I got the time. I'll say a couple to him. Don't get nervous. You're not nervous. I'm not nervous. Let's just say a tefillah. And everybody's so nervous. But everybody's tricking everybody. Turn to page 232. I want you to start for the second paragraph. In other words, I'm skipping this here. I'm skipping the first underline. Second paragraph. Afal pi. As das was die Schotten gesagt. What the brothers told Yaakov Avinu. As his nit came out of Shel Tzara. No, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Our brother's in a jail cell. Technicality. Is not given klap Yaakov. That's what they told Yaakov Avinu. But they themselves knew that this is terrible. Haben they, Azay Yankov, both them and Yankov both held Gehalt Nadasi the Torah that it's a terrible thing. They can't tell Yankov, and Yankov can't tell them that he doesn't trust them. Onrufundik es kanau hatzara hazes. The brothers call it a tzara, and Yankov thinks it's a tzara. The brother thinks it's a tzara, and everybody's making believe it isn't a tzara. Says Rabbi, von deswegen is in dem Faran achil zwischen the Shvatim and Yankov. There's a difference between this tzara as the Shvatim perceive it and this tzara as Yankov perceive it. In other words, like this. We all understand that the bribe is a reaction to a teva situation. We all understand that the prayer is a reaction to a super teva situation. But that Yankov plays it down. Okay, I'll pray. Because even once we appreciate the fact that both Yaakov and his children understand that what's going on here is not normal, and it requires prayer, but their perceptions are still different. What's the difference? The Shvatim have geguckt auf dem wie a tzara pratis. The Shvatim see this event as a small consequence for an evil act. They saw their brother, they didn't show mercy to their brother, they're not being shown any mercy. They saw it as a local event. Next paragraph. Aber Yankov hat didn't gesehen a matzav tzara klos. Yankov has much more perception, and he doesn't see this as a reaction to a sin. Now remember, he doesn't know that they sinned, he doesn't know this is a reaction to a sin, but he's suspicious. He's suspicious they're not telling him the whole truth. He's suspicious that we don't have all the facts, and he's suspicious that what we don't know is huge. Behemshech to the Fiyadik Taras, it's a continuation to his earlier Taras. Now, I want you to go to 232, second column, second underline. I'm skipping some more. And the Rebbe explains. Yankov als eine von der Gimel of Shekol Am Yisrael. Yankov is one of our patriarchs, one of our fathers. Zet out was passiert mit him. Knows everything that's going on in his life. But he knows everything that's going on in his life as a part of the total history of the Jewish people. Bis as euch der do. When he tells his sons to go to Egypt, uses the word do. Was sagt Labanah that he's telling his children, and of course you know that the word do is the gematria of 210, as a hint that they're going for 210 years of Galus. So Yankov, as one of the Yaves, feels that this is big. This is a part of Galus. And that's what his prayer is about. His prayer is about, he certainly doesn't trust his children. That goes beyond. That's not even a question. But how deep is this tzara? Yankov perceives the calamity that's about to befall them far bigger than his children do, because he sees it in a bigger picture. Versus a siman, which is an indication to the Messiah, the Eser Shanim from the Yidden and Shibis and the 210 years in Egypt. The Shvatim themselves, their children are not fathers. Haben darin nicht gesehen kein Inyan Klali, the Klaus Am Yisrael. Sure, they're in trouble. We know they're in trouble because they did something wrong. The idea that this is bigger than them. Let's say they didn't sell Yosef into slavery. Let's say they were the best of brothers and everything worked out perfect, and somehow they're in Egypt. This is still going to happen. Because this is setting up Golos. This they don't perceive. They see it as a local event. Not a prati, a specific thing or detailed thing or an individual thing, an einish of yedid and fanzei, but prati is a punishment from them personally for selling Yosef Atzadik. So now you have a really complicated story. Everybody agrees you got to send a bribe. Everybody agrees, but no one wants to tell anybody this, that we got to do a prayer. But the Shvatim are praying because they saw their brother. Yankov is praying because he smells Golus Mitzrayim. In Kain Eif Ezei Sasu, and then he says, V'kel Shaka Yitin Lechem B'fnei Ha'ish. Okay, so what did we learn today? We davened up a whole Rashi Sicha in about 24 minutes actually. And the spirit of the Sicha is that everybody understands that this is not just coincidental, it's meaningful. But Yankov suspects that it's not about his son's Avedis, it's about destiny, what the Eibishter wants.